Okay, our first index law tells us that if we have two numbers that are the same, like 2 times 2, just like up here we have a times a, then we can add the powers that are attached to those numbers. So let's say this is 2 to the 4 and this is 2 to the 5. Then the answer would be 2 to the 4 plus 5, which would equal 2 to the 9. Now the reason for that is, if we just take a step back for a minute and think about what this means, this is an abbreviation. Because we're a bit lazy, we don't want to have to write out the full version of this every time. The full version would look like this. 2 to the power of 4 means 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. So we've got 4 2's there all multiplied together, and that's where the 4 comes from. 2 to the 5 would be 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. So we've got 5 2's all lined up there together. So when we're multiplying these two numbers together, or these two sets of numbers, there's our multiply sign in the middle. So we've got 4 lots of 2 lined up here, we've got 5 lots of 2 lined up here, so altogether we've got 9 lots of 2. And so that's how we get to the answer. Let's have a look at another example. So this time we'll use a base number of 3. So let's go 3 to the 7 times 3 to the 3. So our law tells us that because we have the same base number, which is 3, then we can just add the powers. So we're going to go 7 plus 3. And so the answer will be 3 to the 10. Let's have a look at one which uses algebra. So if we have a to the 3 times a to the 4, then even though we don't know what a is, we know that a is the same number. A represents the same number. So it still fits our law, and so over here we can write our base number of a. We're going to add the powers, and so we get a to the 7. Now, the questions can get a bit more complicated when we start to get some coefficients involved. So if we look at something like 4a to the 5 times 3a squared, the only difference here is that we need to multiply these numbers out the front first. So we'd multiply 4 times 3, just like we would on their own. So 4 times 3 is 12. And then we switch to looking at the back section of each number, and we treat that just like we have been doing up above in these questions. So we've got the same base number here, a and a, so that will mean we're going to have the base number of a here. And then because the powers are 5 and 2, we're going to add them, so we're going to have 5 plus 2 is 7. So that was these powers up the top here, we added them. So when we have a coefficient mixed with an algebra letter and then raised to a power, it's important to understand that the power is attached to the base number, which in this case is a. It's not attached to the coefficient out the front. This coefficient, this number here, so that's 4 times a to the 5. That's what that really means. And this is 3 times a squared. So our power number, our index number, is only attached to that direct letter. It's not actually attached to the number out the front. And that's why we can go 4 times 3 equals 12, and then we treat the a component like we have been doing in the previous questions. Let's have a look at just one more. So let's do 3ab to the 4 times minus 2a. So there's a few things going on here again. So first of all, let's deal with the coefficients. So the coefficients here are 3 and minus 2. So 3 times minus 2 is minus 6. Then let's look at the letters involved, I guess, so the variables. So the first one up here is a, and over here we've also got an a. So we've got a times a, and if you think about the powers that would be there, it would be a 1 and a 1. We just don't normally write it if it's 1. So a times a, that's going to lead us to a squared, because same base number and we add those ones. 1 plus 1 is 2. And then the last one that we've got, in this first one we've got a b4. There's no b over here, there's nothing there, so we don't need to multiply it with anything. We just bring that b across because it's not timesing any other b's, and it stays like it is. So altogether, this equals minus 6a squared b to the 4. And if I just write the expanded version for you again underneath, so if I was to expand all of this here, what we're really looking at is 3 times a times b to the 4. And this one here would be minus 2 times a. So if we multiply all of this together, we get 3 times minus 2, which is minus 6. We get a times a, which is a squared, and we get the b4 at the end, which is that. And over here, this means minus 6 times a squared times b to the 4. So remember, in algebra we don't show the multiplication signs, and that's why we can just write it as minus 6 a squared b4.